8:13. And it says, "For if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye but if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live." Um, Gentlemen, is this saying we will be unborn spiritually if we live after the flesh?
Absolutely not. So the key to understanding this passage and what it's talking about exactly, you have to go back to chapter 7, and that's where we have the famous passage where Paul's saying, the things that I do, I allow not. For what I do, that I do not. What I hate, that do I. It's kind of that tongue twister passage right there where he's talking about, that is in me, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. He's like, I want to do right. I want to do right in the inward man, but he's like, I've got this flesh. So Paul's making it very clear. I got this flesh that's really bad and that makes me want to sin. And so then when we go into chapter 8, he says, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. And here's what we got to understand about sin. Sin is always bad. Sin always brings death and destruction. We are going, we were all condemned to hell originally because of sin. Now, when we got saved, we got spared that. But you know what we didn't get spared is the earthly consequences of sin. And if, as believers, if we're sinning on this earth, we're still going to have problems. We're still going to suffer. In fact, we can still have condemnation, you could say. If if I'm out there murdering people, I'm probably going to have some earthly condemnation that I have to deal with. I'm going to receive some chastening from God. But any chastening I receive from God is always going to be because of my sin. It's never going to be because of anything that I did walking in the Spirit. And so when he says, if we live after the flesh, we shall die. But if we through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, we shall live. This is how, so even if we're saved, sin always brings death and destruction. It won't bring hell, but it will destroy your life. And so in order to understand what Paul's talking about, you go back to chapter 7, he's explaining how sinful our flesh is. And then chapter 8, he's just showing us that if we will walk in the Spirit, then we will not fulfill the desires of the flesh. If I will walk in the Spirit daily, I won't have to deal with the consequences that come from sin, because saved people have consequences on this earth for sin, just like everyone else. And so we ought to have, so the way a Christian is supposed to live, it's in the Spirit, but what we have to do, we have to die daily. And that's why in verse 18, he says, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. Tells me, again, it's not yet appearing what we shall be. It says, for the creature was made subject to vanity. That's talking about our flesh, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Why? Because there's so much condemnation in sin. There's so much death and destruction in sin. And we as believers who have the Spirit, we've got something in us that's groaning and that's desiring for that new man to be put on. It says, and not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. For we are saved by hope. But hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man seeth, why doth he yet hope for? But if we hope for that we see not, then do we with patience wait for it. So we don't have what we're looking for yet, what we're waiting for, physically speaking, and we're groaning for it, we're desiring it. So, and we have that desire, we have that groaning because our flesh is so sinful. So, and it's telling us here in this passage that, we just have the hope of it, but at the same time, we are guaranteed it. And it says, and he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he make intercession for the saints according to the will of God. So, Jesus is in heaven making intercession for us for the things that we do right now, showing that we're still sinful. You know, we have to have a high priest every day interceding to God for us. But what that's just talking about there, when it talks about if you live after the flesh, you shall die. That's not teaching that you're going to go to hell. You're just going to have problems on this earth. And so those of us who have that Spirit of God in us, we're looking for that new body. And that's why 1 John 3:2 says, beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself even as he is pure. And the secret to avoiding all sin as a believer is walking in the Spirit. And if we're walking in the Spirit, no condemnation, no problems, no sin. Now, nobody's going to do that. All of us are going to get in the flesh. But this passage is also teaching we have someone making intercession for us, Jesus Christ, showing me. So if I don't walk in the Spirit and I get in the flesh, I'm going to have problems here in this earth, but I'm not going to lose my salvation because Jesus makes intercession for me.